Okay, let's get into it. Today we are doing a deep dive on a story it's layered with impossible expectations, a ton of risk, and some really high-stakes international rugby.
We're looking at the winding, really unpredictable road taken by Niko Jones.
And you can't even start that story without saying the name, Jones. It's arguably the most celebrated name in New Zealand rugby history.
For sure.
His father, Sir Michael Jones, the Iceman, he didn't just play the open-side flanker position. He basically revolutionized it. A true force of nature athletic, an immovable defender, and of course famous for that moral conviction of never playing on Sundays.
That is just an immense shadow to have to step out of, especially when you're trying to carve out your own identity. And from everything we've seen, Niko Jones, born in Auckland back in 2000, is absolutely not trying to be a clone of his father. He's a very different kind of athlete.
Completely different. So our mission today is to really analyze this definitive year for him, 2025. This is when he commits to Manu Samoa, secures their spot in the Rugby World Cup, and shows everyone exactly what he's capable of.
Yeah.
And, where the big weaknesses are.
And it's the perfect way to frame it because it all starts with that core difference. The Iceman inheritance versus what you could call the modern hybrid player.
Right.
Sir Michael's greatness was about completeness. He was a master at the breakdown, defensively a wall, and he could dictate the tempo for a full 80 minutes, often just suffocating the opposition all by himself.
And Niko. The analysis we have shows he's built for the modern game, hyper-specialized, high-impact. He's 1.86 meters, 103 kilos, pretty much a perfect open-side prototype.
Yep.
But his main currency is something our sources call dynamic impulse. What are we talking about specifically with that term?
It sounds like jargon, but it's actually critical to understanding him. Dynamic impulse is all about how he transfers power. It's explosive footwork, but it's combined with this rapid acceleration into the contact. So he's not just absorbing a tackle. He is actively looking to break that first line of defense. Think less immovable object and more, guided missile. He hunts for those soft shoulders in a defensive line and just punishes them.
So he is a straight-up attacking weapon.
Yeah.
Designed to create chaos, generate quick ball.
Exactly. And the fascinating part is where he really honed those skills. It wasn't the traditional 15-a-side path. It was his time with the All Blacks Sevens program.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
That kind of rugby is all about creating space, all about explosive power in one-on-one situations. So the Samoan coaching staff, now led by 2CPC, they aren't looking for a clone of the 1991 defensive hero. They are deliberately bringing in this volatile, high-energy ball carrier to completely change their attack.
But, and we see this a lot with players from a sevens background, the trade-off is often the defense.
It is.
The coaches have to know his defensive technique needs a serious amount of refinement to survive at the Tier 1 test level. The demands there are just unrelenting.
Which brings us to his career path itself. I mean, if you look at his resume, it is anything but a straight line to the top. It's full of detours, and every single detour tells you something important about him.
It really starts with that scholastic dominance at St. Peter's College in Auckland. And this is where we get the first real glimpse of his psychology, under extreme pressure.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 2018 National Top 4 final.
Oh, that game is legendary. St. Peter's was up against Napier Boys High School, and they were getting absolutely dominated in the first half. They were down 0-21.
Wait, 21-0 down in a national schoolboy final?
Mm-hmm.
That is an insane amount of pressure to come back from.
It is. A deficit like that at that level usually means the game's over. Heads drop. But Jones, who was captaining the side, he just wouldn't let that happen. He personally orchestrated this unbelievable comeback.
Wow.
Just through sheer will and some brilliant individual plays. They won 31-28 in the final minutes. He was named MVP. That performance, it wasn't just about skill. It showed he could operate and even thrive when things were at their absolute worst.
But then his path to becoming a professional just got, chaotic. He chose the All Blacks Sevens program for 2019, which, like you said, made sense for polishing those explosive skills.
It was a good strategy, but the timing was just awful because of things he couldn't control. First, a pretty significant foot injury really slowed down his integration into the team.
Right.
And then, bam, 2020, the pandemic hits. COVID-19 just paralyzes the whole Sevens circuit. The sources are pretty clear on this. That period of stagnation probably delayed his professional development by 2 full seasons.
So you have this massive talent who suddenly loses 2 years of crucial development. That context really explains the next very unexpected turn in his career, the American excursion.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand's loose forward depth is just Famously difficult to crack. It's a traffic jam at world-class talent. He just needed to play.
Precisely. So in 2023, he signs with Old Glory DC in Major League Rugby, the MLR, over in the USA. And the key detail here is that he was eligible through an American-born grandfather.
That eligibility piece is so important. It shows how sophisticated these career paths are now.
It's a calculated move. This wasn't a holiday. It was about getting professional match fitness.
So how good was that MLR stint for him, really? Was it just like an extended training camp, or did it genuinely move his career forward?
Oh, it was vital for his specific skill set. The defensive structure in the MLR is, let's say, less organized than what you'd find in Super Rugby.
Sure.
And that allowed his ball carrying, that dynamic impulse we talked about, to be a primary weapon without his defensive issues being, ruthlessly exposed week after week. He was a star there. He was crucial in getting DC to their first ever playoff appearance and their first playoff win.
So it proved he was still a top-tier athlete, but to get back into the Tier 1 conversation, he needed a bigger stage.
And that stage was Moana Pacifica. The creation of that Super Rugby franchise was the single biggest enabler for his Samoan aspirations. It's designed specifically to give that high-level trans-Tasman exposure to players of Pacific Island heritage.
So it wasn't just a cultural fit, it was a professional necessity.
Absolutely. It provided the high-tempo rugby he needed to bridge that gap from MLR to the test match arena.
Okay, so he uses the MLR to prove his carrying, Moana Pacifica, to raise his overall game. That brings us right to the moment of decision, the crossroads of 2025. He's got 3 real options: New Zealand, the US, and Samoa.
And the heritage path won out. The catalyst was 2CPC being appointed Manu Samoa head coach in April 2025. He went hard after heritage players like Jones. The message was explicit. We need warriors who understand the weight of the jersey.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And that coaching confidence locked him in. His international debut came fast, July 18, 2025, against a Tier 1 team, Scotland, at Eden Park.
Yeah, and Samoa lost heavily, 12-41. But even coming off the bench, Jones showed that elite trait we keep talking about.
Right, the clean break.
Exactly. The match laws confirm it. It's the 80th minute, and the post-match commentary described it, a bit hyperbolically, as him parting the Red Sea. Even in a big loss, he delivered this moment of pure attacking class. It showed the coaches why they'd invested in him.
But then the Pacific Nations Cup campaign was just a disaster for their direct World Cup qualification hopes.
It was. That demoralizing 13-29 loss to the USA was really the nail in the coffin. It forced Samoa into the final qualification tournament, the FQT.
The FQT is just pure drama, high stakes. It's in Dubai, November 2025, Samoa, Brazil, Namibia, and Belgium. Winner takes all, basically.
And this became the crucible. The entire 4-year cycle just condensed into this 2-week tournament.
And it all came down to the final match against Belgium. Samoa was leading the standings on bonus points, which meant a draw would be enough. That's when Coach PC made a huge selection gamble.
A massive gamble. He trusted Jones's dynamic ability enough to give him his very first test start at open side flanker, number 7, for the biggest match of the entire cycle.
That is an enormous show of confidence in a player with so few caps.
It is. He was clearly banking on Jones to inject that attacking energy and, break the game open for them.
And it was a gamble that almost immediately backfired by exposing his biggest flaw.
Yep. Samoa was leading 3-0 early on, but in the 12th minute, Jones has that critical disciplinary moment.
A high tackle.
A high tackle. The referee, under the very strict World Rugby Head contact process, really had no choice. It was an immediate yellow card. And this wasn't just bad luck. This was that aggression we talked about bleeding into recklessness, a technical flaw. He didn't lower his body height.
And Belgium capitalized on it instantly, leveled the score 3-3. That one moment just shows you the two sides of Niko Jones, the dynamic player who can win you a game and the huge disciplinary risk who can lose you one.
It was an incredibly tense finish. Despite being a man down for 10 minutes, the final score was an unbelievable 13-13 draw.
Wow.
And that single point from the draw was enough. It put Samoa on 12 points to Belgium's 11 in the final standings. They qualified for the World Cup by a single point.
So he helped get them there. But his mistake almost cost them everything. That really brings us to the technical breakdown. What does his future look like heading towards 2027?
Well, the technical profile really confirms that volatility. His elite trait is his ball carrying. We've established that. He has a very high carry frequency of 40% carry prominence. That means he's used as a primary runner almost half the time he gets the ball.
But then you look at the defensive numbers, and they're alarming. This is the liability. His tackle success rate in the 2024-25 season hovered around 79%.
79%. And if you look at the benchmark for elite Tier 1 flankers, they're operating at 90 to 95%.
So that's a huge gap.
It's a 14% gap. It means he misses roughly 1 in every 5 tackles he attempts. At the test level, that is completely unsustainable. Top teams will build their entire game plan around targeting a weakness like that.
So he's an accident waiting to happen in a knockout game. If his defense is that big a liability, why are the coaches so invested? Is the ball carrying really worth the risk of a match-defining yellow or red card?
And that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? They're banking on his upside. But the risk is profound. That yellow card against Belgium proves the technical flaw is now a systemic risk. He is, to use your term, a card magnet until he fixes that technique.
What about his work at the breakdown? That's where the great number 7s really make their name.
He is not a prolific jackal and a breakdown specialist who gets a lot of turnovers. His game is about power, not pilfering. That means the team has to rely on other players to secure the ball. And there's also the issue of his height. 1.86 meters is on the shorter side for a modern test flanker.
So that creates a physical complication in the set piece.
It does. If you start him alongside another shorter loose forward like Alamana Motuga, you seriously compromise your lineout, especially against the big Northern Hemisphere teams. That height disadvantage becomes a major strategic problem.
So what does this all add up to for the 2027 World Cup? Is he a starter or is he a luxury item off the bench?
Given those weaknesses, his most probable role is as an impact substitute, the bomb squad role, basically. You bring him on after 50 or 60 minutes to use that dynamic carrying against tired defenders.
Okay.
But, and this is important, his probability of making that final squad is very high. I'd say over 90%.
Why so certain, given those pretty glaring flaws we've just talked about?
Because of the investment and the trust from the coach, PT started him in that do-or-die qualifier. That's maximum faith. They've capped him, they've secured his eligibility, and they desperately need the unique game-breaking ability he offers. They are all in on Niko Jones. Now they have 18 months to fix the technique.
So to wrap it up, Niko Jones has successfully navigated this incredibly tumultuous path. He's stepped out of the Iceman's shadow, and he's secured his place on the international stage. But his game is still this brilliantly volatile mix of explosive potential and raw, costly errors.
But the timing of these next 18 months is a massive opportunity for him. The introduction of the World Rugby Nations Cup in 2026 is, I think, a total game changer for Manu Samoa.
Tell us why that tournament is so important for a player like him.
It guarantees Samoa regular, structured games against Tier 1 nations. It removes that rust factor that plagued them with inconsistent schedules before. That consistent high-level rugby is exactly what he needs to pressure test and refine his defense. He can't hide in that tournament. He'll be forced to get better, fast.
And that raises the big question for you, the listener, to think about as we watch this build up to 2027. Jones isn't a complete international player yet, but he's perfectly positioned to become one. If he can use the guaranteed hard rugby of the 2026 Nations Cup to finally master his tackle height, to close that 14% defensive gap, he won't just represent Samoa at the World Cup. He could genuinely become one of the tournament's most electrifying must-watch players. The heir has arrived. Now he just has to conquer his own technique.